This is the ultimate guide to OpenClaw, and by the end of this video you will have a deep understanding of it. We're going from zero to a fully functional working setup running 24/7. I will cover what OpenClaw is, its architecture, how it works, and everything you need to set it up for success, especially security. You will learn how to set up configuration, memory, security, all without touching a single line of code. By now you've probably seen a lot of tutorials about OpenClaw, and many of those may feel overwhelming, so what I'm trying to do here is try to make it as easy as possible. So before going deep in this tutorial, I want to explain the three main ways that you can run OpenClaw. The first one is on your primary computer. It could be your Mac Mini, it could be a laptop, a desktop, whatever. Many people do this, but since OpenClaw is a pretty powerful tool, and you can access all the resources on your computer, this is not a very secure way to do this. If anything malicious happens on your machine, it takes control of all the files that you have, all the accounts you have, and it compromises your passwords and so on. The second way that most people do is through a VPS. This is basically a remotely hosted instance of OpenClaw where you install the agent on a remote server. This offers a better level of security because basically you are running the instance on a remote server, so it technically cannot touch your local files. But still, if you're planning on using OpenClaw on some of your local files, for example, uploading your files to the chat and asking to analyze PDFs or work on your personal file, you're still uploading files on the VPS, so it still has access to your personal files. This is why my preferred method to install OpenClaw is on its own dedicated device. In this way, all your personal files stay on your personal device, and OpenClaw only has access to the device it runs on. You could still argue that if you give files to OpenClaw, it could still have access to those files, but at least they remain local. So for example, if you give OpenClaw your bank statement because you want to track your spending habits, your bank statement still stays on your local device, which is way different than uploading it on a VPS. Personally, I run OpenClaw on my Raspberry Pi, and if you want to see how I set it up, here's the link to the video. So now that you have it installed and running on your machine, the first thing to do is to understand how it works. OpenClaw is very different from, for example, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, because those are basically chatbots. You say something and they say something back. OpenClaw is different. It runs 24/7 on your personal machine. It can connect to your app, and it can take decisions for you and take actions for you. It has its own memory, so it remembers things and gets better over time. You can add tools to connect it to your personal apps such as Discord, Telegram, WhatsApp, even iMessage. And you can add skills to extend its functionality to basically do whatever you want. You want to access your calendar? There's a skill. You want to access your Gmail account? There's a skill. You want to do research on the internet? There's a skill. Let's now start understanding its architecture. The core of OpenClaw are these four files. The first one, agents.md, contains all the instructions and rules that you want to set to OpenClaw. The second one, soul.md, defines its, for example, the communication style that you want it to have, which is basically the bot's identity. The third one, user.md, contains all the information that the bot knows about you. For example, your name, your preferences, your time zone, the goals that you have, and all the preferences that you have. And last one, memory.md, is its long-term memory. This is where the bot stores everything you say, all the conversations you have, so that they can be fetched later. You can think of these four files as OpenClaw's brain. On top of this brain sits the gateway. The gateway basically protects the brain from external access. It basically exposes the APIs for the communication with the external world. This is where, for example, you connect all your interfaces. In this case, here it says Telegram, but you can connect Discord, WhatsApp, iMessage, pretty much anything. Next is OpenClaw's extensions, which is achieved through skills. Skills can be installed independently, but I strongly recommend ClawHub's marketplace, which is basically the app store for skills, where you can find pretty much any kind of skill for any kind of need you have. One quick note on security though, when you are installing skills from any marketplace, make sure that you check at least the files that it contains, because it could hide any kind of malicious intent. Other powerful features are sub-agent execution and smart model routing, which I'm going to cover in future videos because these are advanced topics. Now that you have OpenClaw running on your machine, the first thing you want to do is just say hello in the chat. This will load the bootstrap file, which will prompt OpenClaw to ask you a few questions. For example, who are you, what nickname you want to assign to OpenClaw, what are your preferences, what is your time zone, and so on. And this will kick the initial configuration. Since OpenClaw is a very proactive agent, I recommend starting here with giving it as much information as you possibly can about yourself. For example, what do you want to use OpenClaw for? what are your goals, what are your preferences, what you like to do, what you like it to do for you. This will give OpenClaw a very good understanding of what it can start doing for you. This is where you will start seeing that OpenClaw is a different tool compared to ChatGPT or other chatbots. After you're given OpenClaw this information, it will store all the data into local files, and we said before, the agents.md, the skill.md, the soul.md. So if you go to files and you check all those files locally, you can see that they store pretty much all the information that you gave it. Identity, for example, I gave my agent's name George, and here you can see all the configuration. This is what it remembers about me, and so on and so forth. This persistence mechanism makes OpenClaw's memory very powerful, and it gets better over time the more you use it. Now, before doing anything else, we need to make sure that we create a secure environment for OpenClaw. If you remember from before, I said that it is a very powerful tool that has a lot of capabilities. It can access the web, it can run commands on the terminal, it can access local files, so we need to make sure that all the permissions are set in place. On OpenClaw's online documentation, there is an entire page dedicated to security. So after giving it a very good read, I recommend you just copy that URL, paste it into OpenClaw's chat, and ask it to run basically a security audit against those rules, with only one exception. You want to leave allow unsecured auth set to true, and that is just to allow HTTP connection instead of HTTPS connection. And this is because in my case, I'm accessing OpenClaw's on my Raspberry Pi from other devices on my network, so I want to allow HTTP instead of HTTPS. After you send this command, probably OpenClaw will need to restart, so you will see it disconnect for a second, and when it comes back up, the next thing you want to do is start setting some guardrails. These are basically rules that you want to give OpenClaw to control its behavior. For example, always ask for my approval before deleting files. Always ask for my approval before making network requests. This is how you start putting constraints around OpenClaw, which is very important for security. Now that you have security pretty much logged in, next thing you want to do is start installing skills, and that is the real power of OpenClaw, because otherwise it is nothing more than a fancy chatbot. As I said before, installing a skill means giving OpenClaw additional functionalities. For example, you want OpenClaw to access your calendar, that's a skill. You want OpenClaw to analyze stocks, that's another skill. You want to build an agent that runs a morning brief and gives you all the latest news about a specific topic, there's a skill. If you go to the skills tab on OpenClaw, you see that it already comes with the built-in skills. And you can see that there's one for pretty much anything. Apple Notes, Apple Reminder. There's one for ClawHub, which is the skill marketplace that I mentioned before. There's one for Discord, Gemini, GitHub, Google. There's pretty much everything. So you can see that the ones that are marked green, I have already installed, and all the other ones are marked blocked because I have not installed yet. For the built-in ones, you can install very easily. For example, tapping here, there's an install button on the right. So if you just tap that, it will start the installation process. Be mindful that just installation sometimes cannot go through because some skills need additional features, for example, CLI or other tools. But never mind, it will be prompted by OpenClaw itself in the chat. For example, let's say that I want to install this Google Workspace CLI. I just tap install. And in this case, it says, for example, that Brew is not installed because I'm running this on the Raspberry Pi, as I mentioned before, and on my Raspberry Pi, Brew is not installed. And here it tells you what you should do. You should install Brew from this link here, or you can simply install it manually with the package manager. But one of the most useful skills is the ClawHub skill itself. This skill basically teaches OpenClaw how to install skills directly from the marketplace. You can visit clawhub.ai just to have a better understanding of what the skills are and what you can find. For example, if you tap here, browse skills, you see here that there are more than 21,000 skills. One thing we're mentioning here is I hid the suspicious one because, as I said before, there could be some security concerns in any of these skills, so you want to be aware of that. One way to filter them out is to filter by hide suspicious, or maybe when you want to browse one by one, there is a security scan report here that says virus total and security confidence. If both of these are green, it generally means that this skill in particular has no major security concerns. But if you go back and search for another one, for example, let's try this one, you see that the confidence on this one is medium, and it's marked as suspicious. So always double check before installing a skill, and even if it is green, it doesn't mean that it's safe. Anyways, there are multiple ways that you can install skills. One is by simply running this command, npx clawhub install, and the name of the skill you want to install. Or you can simply take the skill name. For example, I want to install this one, summarize. You take the name, go back to OpenClaw, and in the chat you simply say install skill summarize, and you should be smart enough to use ClawHub skill to fetch that skill and install it for you. You can see from this file that it fetched clawhub skill.md, and now it's using that to fetch the skill that we requested. And you can see that now here it is successfully installed. Now with this skill enabled, you can basically take any text that you want. For example, we can take the security paragraph from the documentation of OpenClaw page, and if you do copy paste, for example, we take this portion, we do copy, go back to OpenClaw, and we ask summarize this text. Here it's giving us a very quick summary of what we pasted. So this is how easy it is to set up, configure, and use OpenClaw. Today we have been able to configure memory, identity, security, and skills without touching any single line of code. And this is a very beginner-friendly video because with this we are just barely scratching the surface. There are many more advanced topics that I'm going to cover in the next videos. For example, creating agents, creating sub-agents, configuring different models from the different agents, running local models, and even smart routing to make sure that we are minimizing the usage of tokens for all the LLMs that we have. If you like this video, drop a like, subscribe, because in the next one, I will show you how to implement agents and how to run OpenClaw in a multi-agent environment. Stay tuned.